Sigma 35 f1.2 versus Sony 35 1.4G Master round 2, because we got the second generation of Sigma 35 f1.2, and oh boy, it is smaller than the previous generation that I called a wrist breaker. And pricing wise, there's almost no difference between a G Master lens and a new Sigma version 2. So in this video, I'm going to show you comparison between these two lenses, but I'm going to focus specifically on that f1.4 versus f1.2 difference, so you can see for yourself which image do you prefer. I have a bunch of samples from a photo shoot that I shot with that Sigma 35 1.2, and then I have side-by-side portraits shot on tripod with both Sigma and Sony, so we can compare. Let's go. First of all, if you're new around here, my name is Magic. I'm a destination wedding photographer. I've been shooting weddings since 2012, and since 2021, I run this YouTube channel talking cameras, lenses, gear for wedding photography specifically. So please subscribe if you're into any of these topics. Disclosure: I don't own Sigma 35 1.2. I had a loaner from a local Sigma reseller for the purpose of testing, and I did send it back already. I don't have it with me anymore. I do own 35 1.4G Master, and this has been my go-to lens since it was announced back in 2021, and I delivered over 55,000 photos from this lens. Only delivered. I shot a bunch of more, like all of the photos that didn't get delivered to my clients. So it's safe to say I feel very confident about how it works on virtually every camera body from Sony in any type of lighting scenario. Then with that Sigma 35 1.2 version 2, I only shot like slightly over 1,000 photos. So like a full couple shoot, a bunch of comparison shots, and a bunch of like random photos. So I don't have like a full experience of this lens in every lighting conditions, but I do have like pretty good understanding on how it works with my camera. Let's start with first comparison, being the size and weight. Sigma 35 1.2 version 2 is still visibly larger than Sony 35G Master, but the difference is not a night and day like it used to be in case of the version 1 of that Sigma. For my personal taste and the fact that almost always when I'm at the wedding or any type of shoot, I have 35mm lens on one of my cameras, the version 1 of Sigma 35 f1.2 was simply too big and too front heavy for me. I'm no muscle guy, I'm like, my wrists are quite small, so I was already tired after shooting with that big lens for like 20 or 30 minutes, and with the newer version of that lens, it's not the case at all. It's 30% lighter than the version 1 and way smaller. Again, it's slightly bigger than 35 1.4G Master Sony, but more similar to the size of 50G Master f1.2, if you know that lens, which I also use on a daily basis, and I have zero problems of rocking that lens full day. Both 35 Sony and Sigma have aperture ring, we have manual focus to autofocus switch, we have a click on and off. Then the Sigma additionally have aperture lock, which Sony doesn't have, and we have one custom hold button on both of these lenses. Sony filter's diameter is 67mm versus Sigma's 72mm, so you need a bigger filters for Sigma. When you mount that Sigma on a newer Sony body, so I personally use A9 III, it feels great. Handling and weight distribution are not a problem for me and my hands. When it comes to a shooting experience, specifically on Sony A9 III, I have nothing but positive feedback for the new Sigma 35 1.2. You can actually watch entire video from a shoot that I'm showing you right now. So the AF performance, tracking from corner to corner, you'll see all that, tracking the couple that is walking towards me, tracking from farther distances, from closer distances. It all works just like my G Master lens and at the quality I'm used to with my G Master lenses. Again, I haven't really shot a full wedding with it or enough different lighting scenarios, so I can't say it's 100% the same performance, but judging from my previous experiences with Sigma lenses, that, was never perfect. Even on a singular shoot, I could always feel that the performance of Sigma is not the GM quality. This is not the case in terms of this lens. This lens definitely feels better, which might be a good signal of the progress of Sigma lenses, or it might be the proof that not every Sigma is equally good in terms of, the quality control, which could be the case as well. But I can't testify to that. Like, the piece that I had with me is perfect. The only downside of the Sigma here is going to be that third-party compatibility with Sony cameras. None of the third-party lenses can shoot higher frame rates on Sony cameras. They are all capped at 15 frames per second, even though my Sony a9 III can shoot 20, 30, 60, and even 120 frames per second with every G Master lens. So that's a big bummer. The big bummer for me, probably not for everyone. And then we don't have like these lens compensations that are built in terms of the camera. So no briefing compensation that comes with Sony G Master lenses on Sony bodies. So for those of you who are filming, this might be more of a deciding factor for me. Like I don't care about that. I personally use that 120 frame burst quite often at my weddings as a way to create these moving pictures. So that is definitely something that keeps me in the G Master ecosystem. But while it's something I use, I don't think I know another person, maybe other than Bench Heish, who uses 120 frames per second burst photos. So for most of you, it's probably not going to be issue at all. Now, before we look at the side-by-side images, I have a question to you. Are you also spending this entire fall in your editing cave going over tons of thousands of images? Well, if you want to speed up your editing workflow, I do have a solution coming from a sponsor of this segment of the video, which is Imagen. Imagen, that is an absolute game changer when it comes to editing my wedding photos. Like, how does it work? It's a service that lets you create your own AI editing profile based on your Lightroom edits or your Lightroom preset. And then it edits your weddings the way you would edit them in the matter of minutes. So look at this. This is my recent wedding. I edited this week, yesterday to be precise. I've sent over 1,100 images for editing using my own custom profile that was trained on over 15,000 images. And within around 15 minutes, I had these images back in my Lightroom edited. For me, it's always a first step. I like to do manual review, so I tweak the final images before I send them to the client. But gone are the times of correcting white balance and exposure on all of the images. All of the photos are matched and they look just like I would edit them, and sometimes even better, because my profile is definitely more consistent than I am with my tired eyes after 10 hours of editing in the dark. So if you want to try it out, you can get 1,500 free edits, meaning you can edit like 1, 2, even 3 full weddings for free to see how it works for you. Check out the link in the description to unlock your free edits, and check out my profile, which you can also get to get your photos edited just like I would edit them. Okay, now comparison photos. For these comparisons, I shot a bunch of different ones. So from close focusing to mid-range focusing to long-range focusing, so we can see both details and sharpness and like the focusing, how it works. All of the shots were shot on tripod while trying to keep my model not moving so we can have the closest possible results, across like all of these images. And none of these samples are edited. So we're looking at differences in straight out of camera raw images. I shot 35-1.4 at 1.4 and then 35-1.2 Sigma at both 1.2 and 1.4, so we can compare all of that. And then I turned off all the lens corrections as well. So first thing that you will notice is the color shift. Sigma has slightly warmer tones at the same white balance values. From my experience, this has always been the case. So all of my G Master lenses have a consistent tones, and Sigmas were always a little warmer. And while I don't have any other Sigma lenses to directly compare the Sigma to, I'm 90% sure that they are all color matched. So Sigma have, the same warm tones, and Sony has the same slightly colder tones at the same values of white balance. Now, sharpness. Keep in mind, like this is my a9 III sensor, so we only have 24 megapixels, so not crazy, we cannot zoom in that closely. And at that resolution, I see basically no difference between 35 f1.2 at f1.2 versus G Master at f1.4. Like every picture I took has a perfect focus where it's supposed to be, so it's sharp where it's supposed to be, and the sharpness is identical between the photos. What is different is going to be background blur, and oh boy, it does get interesting here. Because when judging all the background blur, there's no doubt that 35-1.2 has much blurrier background. So you can see in basically every image after you zoom in, or even before you zoom in, like no matter the distance, but at close distances, you will see definitely more difference. But everything is just, like more blurry in the background with the Sigma lens. So here is a close shot. You can see the difference. Then here is the kind of like a mid-range distance shot. You can also see the difference in the background blur. And then even like with a further distance shot, so like having your subject quite far away, you will see that, that blur in the background being different on that Sigma versus Sony. But I said this is where it gets interesting. And what I mean is that when you step down the Sigma from f1.2 to f1.4, it's still more blurry than Sony at f1.4. So that's what I noticed in the first place, like in the first video when I shot the couple just on Sigma, and I tried both apertures f1.2 and f1.4, and there was basically no like visible difference, or like the difference was like very minimal between that f1.2 and f1.4, which I couldn't explain. And look at this now. This is f1.2 on Sigma, and this is f1.4 on Sigma. The difference is minimal, but now this is that f1.4 on Sigma versus f1.4 on Sony. So the Sigma is still more blurry in the background at the same aperture. If anyone has any idea why is it like this, let me know in the comments. Is it the way that they build this lens, or what is it? But that's definitely interesting to me. So looking at these two lenses, Sigma made an amazing piece of technology in my opinion, and I think they're getting better and better with every release. So you might be asking now, which one is a better choice for a Sony camera if both cost the same? So for me, it does come down to a couple of things. First, do you care about that third-party lens limitations on Sony? Do you want your lens to be, maximal compatibility with more than 15 frames per second on your A1 or A9 cameras? Do you want that focus breathing compensation when filming? Like, you have to ask these questions to yourself. And I do truly think, to be honest, that like I know many photographers shooting cameras like A1s and A9 IIIs, and photographers who are shooting cameras like this are probably not looking at third-party lenses either way. So, they want the top performance and they have a budget. So probably they're going for Sony's. And that's an easy decision for you if you're shooting one of these top dogs cameras. But then if you're shooting cameras like A7, A7R5, A7 IV, which never go beyond 10 frames per second either way. So that limitation is not existent. So now when you're thinking, should I go Sigma or should I go Sony? The decision is much harder. And I would say this, if you shoot with other Sony lenses, so you have a couple of Sony lenses like G lenses, G Master lenses, you're probably going to be better off with Sony G Master, just to have that, color compatibility over all the lenses. So anything you should have like the same colors. But if you shoot Sigma lenses, you're going to be better off with another Sigma lens. It's probably a very basic answer. If you shoot Sigma, get a Sigma. If you shoot Sony, get a Sony. But this is what it is. But then there's also a bunch of you who just want the most blurry background or want the fastest prime there is. So then, then that 35-1.2 Sigma is the way to go. It's like super easy decision. That difference is visible in the image and the performance is great. Now, if you want to see how the lens perform on a real photo shoot, you can watch my full behind the scenes with that Sigma 35 f1.2 right here.